Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Dane Zorko here from the Brisbane Lions.
Jason Johannesen from the Western Bulldogs.
Luke Parker here from the Sydney Swans.
It's Roy Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Max Orr, Melbourne Football Club.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hello, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. A little bit later this week than normal, but better late than never, hey. It is nice to have you here. Welcome to a monster podcast episode. Plenty of stuff to get through. Players coming off the bye, trade targets, cash cows, keeper leagues, and a ton more other stuff on the way. Joining me in the studio this week talking all things fantasy footy, I got the Fox back. Hello, mates.
G'day, mate. Second week for me.
2 out of 3 weeks. It's nice to have you back and around.
I'll be on the bubble after tonight.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that after a week in between coming back off injury. It's nice to have you. And a voice you probably haven't heard since the 50 most relevant back in February. It's nice to have Tim in. Hello, buddy. How are you?
Good, thanks. How's it going?
It's good. Like I said, there is plenty of stuff to talk about for fantasy footy coaches. Whether you play Dream Team, SuperCoach, AFL Fantasy, you're a drafter or a daily fantasy player, there's plenty of stuff to get to. And, of course, our Patreon supporters, we've got some of your questions that you've been asking via the Patreon community. If you want to join that, you can at patreon.com/coaches panel and help support the Coaches Panel. Before we get to cash cows, and there is a number of cash cows that are, from a Dream Team and SuperCoach perspective, on the bubble for AFL Fantasy, still under 300,000 and present some value for us. Some trade targets I want to get to. But I think there's a big question. Maybe, Tim, I'll start it with you in terms of it is, we're getting to the point in the year that more so in Dream Team and SuperCoach, it's definitely a phrase we'd use in AFL Fantasy, given we've got 2 trades a week no matter what. You never feel in that format you have a, quote, completed side, given that you're now playing fixture running and still trying to build your side through that. But when it comes to Dream Team and SuperCoach, is this the week now, and I know every side's different, are we now at the point where after the trades we make this week, are we at a completed side? Or for most within the community, we're probably still one more round of trading before we get there?
Yeah, it seems to be. We were talking about that earlier, and it seems like most people are on about 2 premiums left to go, including this week. So depending how much money you got in the bank, you might be there this week. You might be 1 to go. If you've really done it well, you might be there already.
Yeah.
And, just setting yourself up for the run home. So if you're in any of those categories, it sounds like you're about normal. If you've got 3 or more to go, you're a bit behind the 8 ball at this stage.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, Fox, when we talk about a completed side, it's also a subjective opinion because...
Very subjective.
Because I might say I have a completed side with Brodie Smith at D6, and for others they may think, well, that's not a completed side. And again, that's format to format dependent.
Yeah, you could say Brodie Smith is for SuperCoach, but not for Dream Team.
Yeah, and that's true.
Marty Hall.
Yeah, would you say in SuperCoach, if you had Marty Hall at D6, would you feel confident?
Yeah, I'd feel comfortable. As long as I had some bench cover that I could loop in or something like that.
Yeah. I want to come back to that bench cover conversation too, because I think sometimes, Tim, there's that process of it's the rush to get the best 22 possible on field. The balance of the premiums has started the year with the guys you might have had to trade in through injuries, and then the upgrades you've made over the past 6 to 8 weeks to get you where you're at to. How aggressive should you be leaning into that completed side? Is it at the cost of no bench cover and then just cross your fingers and hope you don't get a laid out or an injury or something like that, especially in the limited trades where you only got 30 and once they're done and gone? Is that the strategy? I know everyone's different, but is that the strategy? Just run the gauntlet, finish the side, and cop the bad luck if it comes your way?
So you're talking about people going for overall, basically, on that. It's a $64 question, that one, isn't it? Look, I don't think you can go with no bench cover.
Right.
So, you're going to have people miss, but at the same time, if you're talking like average bench cover versus lesser scoring on field, I think you've really got to go for the scoring on field.
Yeah.
You're unlikely to succeed by going the lesser option on field, you'd think, because it could be, 10 points a week. Each player you do that for on the run home.
Yeah. And so, Fox, is it very much this, and again, every player chooses to play the game different. Some coaches feel a little bit nervous about that and go, I'd rather choose to allow the Dersma of the Lockhart. I'm gonna the guy that's made me a heap of cash along the year. I'm going to choose to hold on to them for the year as cover, as opposed to the other coach who goes, no, they've done their job, get aggressive, get it done.
Yeah, well, I don't mind Dersma.
Okay.
Actually,
All
to
right.
be honest.
Okay.
You could trade him out to someone and he might fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all subjective. If you're going for the win, I think you've got to be
Rankings.
very aggressive.
Yeah. So where's the strategy different for a rankings as a league focus at this point of time in the season? Like, how many trades are you... Because if you're focusing on leagues, it's the final... For most leagues, the final 4 weeks of the year. Is there a set number in the back of your mind, Fox? If you were making leagues you focus, you're going, okay, in these more limited trade formats of Dream Team and SuperCoach, AFL Fantasy, you got 2 weeks, so it doesn't matter how you could use them. Are you going, I need 2, I need 4? Is that the way you're choosing to approach it if leagues are the priority over ranking?
I think you need at least 1 a week.
For the finals as leagues?
Finals, yeah.
So you're talking 4 for the finals?
Yeah,
4
yeah,
trades?
4. And you'd also like to have 1 or 2 up, I think.
Okay, so you're saying in an ideal sense for leagues, and there's always the ideal and then the reality. You're saying if you could have up to 6, that's where you'd love to be, but 4 would give you confidence you can make the moves you need.
6 or 7 with 5 weeks to go.
Holy crap, and you're going to have a completed side there
no,
too?
if you're going for leagues.
Right.
Yeah, because I've been done plenty of times by the team that's finished 8th in a league.
Yep.
Just bang, bang, bang.
Well, and sides, look, we're heading into the final couple of months of the year, aren't we, Tim, where while there is still plenty of spots in the top 8 up for grabs, it looks pretty clear that there's a top 4 or 5 bunch of teams that, barring something drastic, I can't see Geelong falling out of the finals, I can't see Collingwood falling out of the finals, I can't see West Coast, GWS. You'd probably say Adelaide, just with a bit of the fixture they've got. Whether they make the top 4 is another conversation, but you'd just be surprised if they drop away. And then there's a bunch of Essendon, Richmond, Fremantle, Port Adelaide, these guys that all should be in the conversation too. But we'll see teams like Gold Coast, St Kilda, Carlton start putting sides and players and premiums away. We see this every year.
You will, especially guys. So, for example, I mean, I don't think anyone would still have Pierce Hanley.
Sure.
But as an example, he's the kind of guy, if he were to get another soft tissue injury, most likely
Buddy,
they would
you
sit
put
him
in
out
that
for the year.
conversation now that he's out for 4 weeks?
I don't think they'd put him out for the year unless he strained it again on the way back, just because 300 games and all that. But yeah, that kind of player. Like, you got an older player who does a soft tissue at this kind of time of year in a team that's not going to make finals, then that's the kind of guy who's just going to, every chance to miss like 6-8 weeks for it, they'll say, nah, don't come back. So you just got to really watch those kind of players if you've got them in your team.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Fox. You're talking about leagues focus before, and again, the more limited trade formats of Dream Team and SuperCoach, the kind of how many trades you'd like to have. What's in your mindset? Talk me through the mind of the Fox, which is a dangerous thing, because the last time I asked you to describe something to me, I still can't get that mindset of Hoff out of my mind. So please pray for me, everybody. But what's some of the mindset if you're going for a leagues focus? You're heading into the final 8 weeks of the year. Yeah, we reckon finals are either a certainty or a contention for you. What else are you looking for in a strategy? And I'm going to get your rankings thoughts in a second, Tim.
If you're
going for a leagues win, what's your strategy outside of, okay, I got 4, 5, 6 trades that I'd love to have up my sleeve. What else are you navigating and processing now as a coach with a league focus?
Yeah, well, I know that you just have to have all those trades up because the players drop off.
Sure.
So you have to cover that. You cover that, you're fine. But the first thing is you got to make finals.
Yeah, right.
So you got to make that top.
So you burn them to get there rather than.
The main thing is you got to make them.
Yeah, sure.
It's no use saving them and then finding out you finished 9th.
Yeah, right. Okay. So
you have to make the finals.
And that's a little bit of the same mindset, Tim, I suppose, when it comes to pushing for an overall rankings perspective. Is if you're in contention, you may as well use them and have a crack. And if your ranking slips while having a crack, oh, well, such is life, as opposed to I'm just going to keep being conservative. I'm going to hold that top 500 rank preciously, as opposed to, no, mate, stuff it, have a go and have a crack.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we do see a few examples of people who end up winning who have had things go wrong on the run home and they've still gone all right. But with so many people in comps, especially talking like AFL Fantasy, DreamTeam SuperCoach, they've all got several thousand people there, and certainly there'd be hundreds at this stage. Would still be some sort of chance. Someone's going to get the luck going for them. So if you just sit back and make conservative trades every week, someone's going to go past you. Someone's going to hit like a risky pick, and it's going to fly. So it doesn't mean you have to make a risky pick every trade, but you have to take a risk somewhere. Yeah,
there's got to be a risk somewhere, and clearly you've done some right moves across the year to get into a position where you go, I'm a chance of winning this now. There's one of two approaches to make, and it's continue on with the aggressive pathway that's got you where you are, or there's the I'm going to now go against and try to caveat against the guys that could hurt me on the run home and go, well, I'm not a Jackson McRae owner. I've identified he's the guy that could burn me now. With Libber out, it seems like he's getting that much more friendly midfield time again. I suppose, Fox, that's another one of the things to think through as a fantasy coach in rankings.
There's a lot of fallen primos too that if you've got the trades, you can jump on them.
Yeah.
They get a bit of a run of form.
I never thought I'd be looking at a 700,000 player in Dream Team with a 0 break even, which Jackson McRae has right now. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some players that are, whether they've just come fresh off the bye, now that we're out of the multi-bye rounds, fantasy footy 101 is you come out of the multi-bye rounds with two things in mind. One, a stronger rank. That's the ideal. And then secondly, a team that's stronger in the amount of premiums and point potential on field. Like that's fantasy footy 101. Like you're not going to get that every footy side is going to tell that to you. No one's giving you a new revelation on that. But who are some guys that are either just freshly off the bye or we've now seen them for a couple of weeks that as a fantasy footy coach, and tell me the formats too to help people out. But who are some guys that you target? Maybe Fox, could you give me some guys that maybe if you're strapped for cash a little bit, talk me through a couple of the guys that you're needing to just massage because you haven't got the cash generation going as the way you'd like.
Like how far strapped for cash are you looking? Like you're looking at the bet. Yeah.
Give me a couple of options that people could be considering.
Well, all right, I'll start somewhere. I'll start maybe, say, SuperCoach.
Sure.
For forwards. Like a lot of forwards have got a lot of duds there, like Parker and,
Bolter.
There's so many duds there at the moment. So
sure.
You might be looking for a F6-7.
Yep.
At the bottom, now, this is
no dreams in this one, by the way?
No, I actually tried to...
You tried to get one?
And it
didn't work.
It didn't work.
Because the last time you had one, it went bad. Okay.
It didn't go that bad.
Oh, he's not playing Fox. That's pretty bad.
We got 90.
Play on.
All right. Tom Lynch, the Richmond version.
Okay.
Guess how cheap he is in SuperCoach?
Very cheap.
Rewald's back in 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
Might be a sneaky. You might not have to pick him up right now.
Yep.
266.
Whoa.
So he is actually less than Bolter.
I wouldn't want that on field, but gosh, that sounds exciting.
No, but if you say you have him as F7, you can.
He looked good in that game against Adelaide. He started to really hold his marks. That leading patterns were strong. Yeah, he was good.
And how many big games does he play a year? He plays 2 or 3.
Well, he's got a good little run home for the Tigers.
Maybe loop him in.
I really don't mind that as if you're looking to build depth in your side and looking to...
We're looking low end.
Yeah, we're talking low end.
Really
trying to,
low, really. Yeah.
Well, you're under 270,000, Fox, so you're definitely low ending
That's
right
rookie.
now. Yeah, it is. You're taking a rookie to try
it's less than
finish
Bolter.
your side. I'd much rather Tom Lynch in my SuperCoach side than Bolter and Parker, so fair enough.
And then we can move up a little bit. Tom McDonald.
You're moving up 50,000 as we go, yes.
He's had a pretty ordinary year.
He has, but he's given us 4 or 5 games.
He's come off, what did he come off last week? 130. He had a big score
last week. He came off a monster 135. Prior to that, I think it was about 5 or 6 weeks.
And we know it.
And then he had an 80 or 90.
In him.
He does.
I think he's averaging 67, and he's 184k down on what he started. He's got games against Brisbane, Carlton, Dogs, Saints and Tigers.
With West Coast somewhere in the middle there.
And only owned by 1%.
Well, there's a reason only 1% of people own him, Fox.
So it's not the top 1% either.
That's right.
And
I like it. It's true. Right. There's value for money there.
I'm trying to find value.
I appreciate what you're doing for me.
It's just to replace those guys like Drew.
So you're talking about
Drew
getting...
Boltus. I don't know. Setterfield's probably worthwhile having as a swing. But
yeah, you're looking at guys that they're choosing to invest their cash elsewhere,
Yeah.
but they're trying to improve their side with the trade.
These
and not
are the
cash.
type of guys that could come home like a steam train
They could go full West
and
off.
win you your league.
They could go full West off.
I'm going to talk about him later.
Oh, yeah.
We go up a little bit further. Pat Lipinski.
Oh yeah, now you've perked my interest. You've actually got above 350k.
Right. No, 391. He's averaging 89. He's still only in 2.1% SuperCoach.
And we got this
We're
little.
talking SuperCoach.
We are. And I think he's an option in the other formats too, because we've now seen in 2017 and 2018, Bevo seems to love his mid forwards that get on these run homes. Something our Patreons have some content around is if you look at the stats of Toby McLean ending the year, Josh Dunkley ending the year, and now Lipinski, is we are seeing a trend with Beveridge giving guys that have the skills the opportunity in the extended run in the midfield. And
so it's not always bad, Bevo.
no, there's not always bad Bevo.
There's good
If you can
Bevo
get on
too.
the right end of Beveridge, it can be okay for you.
So Lipinski, is he getting Libba's midfield time, or is that McRae? Like, if Libba comes back,
Yep.
how does he impact those two guys?
Well, if you go back and look at the games before that too, is he was still getting midfield opportunities even through that. Now, granted, those were the games where McRae seemed to be not getting in there, but Tom Liberatore I think he was on SEN over the weekend, was saying he was still about 4 to 5 weeks away between now and then. So,
Beautiful.
you know,
There's 4 of the next 5 are at Marvel
well, there you go.
for Lipinski.
Yeah, but I was just thinking, guys like Lipinski, at that price, he's going to be your F6 for the season,
Correct.
basically, given the limited trades and so on.
Yep.
F6 flipping F7.
Well, then, is that when you're going to move Tom Lynch onto your ground? Is it Fox?
Absolutely.
All right. I don't mind the Pinsky call, but I agree. There's risk with guys that could be associated with that, but I like it.
And only one. And then I'll move up a little bit more.
You're getting to 400,000 now.
448.
Okay.
I'll end it there because we don't want to talk about the real big.
Oh, everybody that's not a Dunkley owner is chasing Dunkley if they can get him. They're going for Danger. They're going for Kelly. They're going for these guys they can get. So you're talking value, and that's what I
Danger,
asked.
Dunkley, Kelly, Walters, Daniel, Marshall. Won't talk about those.
Sure.
But Isaac Heaney.
Oh, okay.
He's
SuperCoach. Yep.
Yeah, we're talking SuperCoach.
Yeah, good.
Now where is he on my notes? 448. But does the buddy out affect him too much?
Well, I think Menzel in the side certainly has got to help that forward opportunity through there. Hayward, Reed is getting plenty of opportunities. And so, yes, you could argue that case, but I think Menzel being in the side, Rose being in the side, I think you could feel more comfortable with him.
He looks good, though. He looks fitter, doesn't he?
He does seem to have got rid of any ankle concerns.
Usually means more points.
Well, not. No.
Usually
Because if that's
would.
the case, Tom Scully would have been a fantasy beast for the past 13 seasons.
Oh, Blickabs would be the top scorer.
Oh, that's true. He's a steeplechaser. Yeah, exactly.
Fair call, I'll give you that one.
All right, fair enough. Oh, so you're giving me some cheap options there. I do like the Heaney call in there as well. What about for you, Tim? Some options, whether they be off the bye or, off the bye a couple of weeks ago. Who's some guys we should be looking at, whether it be at the topper end or maybe you want to head to the depths of Mordor of under 270,000 like Fox is? Who are some guys we could be considering?
Yeah, look, I know Fox kind of covered the forwards, but there was one more which is really going to fit in that risk-reward category beautifully, and that's Scott Lysett.
Oh,
because Lysett's a ruck forward.
SuperCoach or any format we're talking?
Well, more SuperCoach, but anything really, because he's average in, I think, Dream Team's about mid-70s, and he's just obviously come off a big 100 in that.
What's his like when Westhoff playing with Westhoff?
With Westhoff?
Yeah.
As in...
with him and then without him.
Or do you mean with
Westhoff's
Ryder?
only missed one.
You mean with Ryder and without Ryder? Or Westhoff particularly?
Why are you talking about Westhoff? He's not playing this week, Fox.
No, I'm just saying that Lysart without Westhoff,
Sure.
Lysart with Westhoff.
Sure.
Like, without Westhoff, it's huge. What did he score?
130, but there was no Ryder.
It was Paddy Ryder, though. Surely it was the...
Surely it was the no Ryder, not the no Westhoff. But I appreciate that you've moved from Tom Sheridan, that you've moved off from Dom Sheed, off the island, and you're now worried about Baywatch Westhoff. I appreciate your new character.
Well, I've got him in all formats, so I've got to push his tyres.
I appreciate it.
Oh,
Ken
come on.
Hinkley isn't, so somebody has to.
Yeah,
which is
so it's
fair enough.
basically the question with Lysette is Ryder going to come back in and share duties,
Yep.
or has Lysette got the sole ruck? Because if he's got the sole ruck, he's already averaging mid-90s in SuperCoach.
Yeah.
And he just scored 180 on his own.
Mm.
So,
Against an undermanaged long department.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
But, you know. Yeah.
No, that's right. I mean, I'm not going to say he's averaging 180, but clearly he scores better if he's the sole ruck.
Yeah. For
It's
the
sort of
record,
the-
everyone knows I love my upcoming fixtures. Bulldogs this week, so that's a positive.
Grundy did all right.
Grundy did certainly does all right on that. Adelaide, so an O'Brien and or a Jacobs combination through there. Then Brisbane, Richmond, GWS, Essendon, Sydney, North Melbourne and Fremantle. That is how Lysette and the Port Power will finish their year.
Yeah. The other sort of main cheaper, like I suppose you'd be sort of a risk-reward, cheapish form of premium is Hanbury in the midfield. So a few people went last week. A few, like myself, were a bit wary of the guy.
Hesitant.
His injury history, and not just even how he would score, but how he'd pull up.
Yep.
But he seems fine, and he scored well.
Yeah.
And he's certainly cheap. So
Did you watch him?
Yeah, what I liked about the game about Dan Howe is that first quarter was really impressive. Now, granted, his teammates were looking to bring him into the game at every single opportunity they could, but he was playing a little behind the ball, and that was one of the reasons why he used the ball a lot more by foot than where previously he had by hand because of the roll, and the ball was just getting into that St Kilda, defensive unit on a barrage. But I actually thought he looked really, really promising. He moved well, didn't seem to be impeded by any injuries. I probably wouldn't be making a sideways trade to go get him, but gosh, if there was the opportunity to either, quote, finish your midfield or deepen your midfield and bench, he needs to be in the conversation because he's a guy that's gone 105, 110 across formats for years, and St Kilda said they were going to rebuild him, and it's one game of data, so you've got to be careful that you don't fall in love with it too much, but
I think they've done a good job. Like,
everything seems to be there.
I was impressed when he ran through the banner. No, because he was... No, it's true. I look at things that other people probably don't. Like, he wasn't
Do they put their shoes on? You're in.
No, he wasn't sponsored by Elastoplast either, was he? I didn't see one bit of Elastoplast on him at all. I didn't even see a Band-Aid.
I want to do a pre-season podcast so much, trying to understand how you pick a player, because it's a fascinating
No, it's
decision.
true.
It's true.
A lot is involved in bandages.
Yep.
And he didn't have one on when he ran through that banner.
I've missed you on the podcast, Fox. That's for sure. Who else has some options? Dan Hannon is certainly one across the formats we could consider.
well, the others are guys we spoke about earlier. McRae.
Yep.
If you don't have him, I think he's owned by about a third of the comp.
Yeah. Is he? Again, we at the coaches panel don't like using the phrase "must have" because it heavily implies that if you don't have them, you can't win without them.
I'm happy to say must-have. Though.
You're happy to say he's a must-have. So if you're saying if you don't have McRae this week, no matter what else, got to go get McRae.
Who are you going up against him?
Well, it's not just about that. It's the trades you are going to do this week as well.
Yeah, well, I think he's cheap enough to go for him. And
He's not going to be any cheaper than this. No question.
This is the week to get him, given what he just scored.
Absolutely. Like he's the ownership's a bit high in SuperCoach, like 35%.
Yeah, it's pretty similar across formats too. You know,
but he's 98k cheaper than he started.
Yeah. If you were big on McRae at any point in the year, this is the time to pull the
4 of the next 5 at Marvel.
It's not bad, is it?
And without Libba, so
yes.
But see, the thing with him, even if Libba comes back, he would be back for 3 or 4 games, if the Dogs aren't making the finals.
Yep.
So that's at most half the games out of those that are left, probably less than half the games left. So even if McRae goes back to what he scored up to date in those last 3 or 4 games,
you'll still get the 4.
You'll still get a higher
scores.
average from now to the end of the season than what he has been.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because I'd sort of compare it. Say you're bringing in a mid this week.
Yep.
Say you're bringing a mid in SuperCoach this week.
Yeah.
You got Josh Kelly. You'd love him in your team,
but you're paying it probably a peak for it. Yeah, sure.
651.
Yep.
Parker, he's on a run at the moment.
He is, but I
but
wouldn't
he's
pay
still,
peak.
No, he's still 632. So at 591, he's a very good price.
You get yes. No, I agree. Yeah, there's value, which is something you never thought we would be saying about Jackson McRae.
Benny Gogos.
He's a big fan of his work. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Buy low.
Yeah, buy low, sell high. Yep. No.
Did he work at buy low?
I don't know. I don't know,
stage.
Fox. All right. So you're saying McRae's a must-have. I'm curious.
I think he's as close as a must-have is.
Okay. All right.
Does
fair
that
enough.
make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I'm hearing you say
So it's not a must-have, but it's close. As close as you get to a must-have.
it's a if you ever wanted to get him
Yeah.
and a bloke that's got a history of some really monster scores last year and this
Yeah.
year, this is your chance to pull the trigger. Otherwise, you're paying top
and we've
dollar.
got a good sample size
Oh, yeah, no
from
question.
last year too.
It's fascinating, isn't it? A month ago, some in the fantasy footy community were even asking us, and we see across different formats and channels going, at the buy, trade McRae. It's like, well, one, why would you sell him at his lowest value point? Like that, as you said, that's that buy low, sell high. Don't sell these people at that low price point because there's no value, and you're just compounding the issue. Secondly, a player like McRae was just one opportunity away from flicking the switch and going full ham again and going bananas, and that's what we've seen. Granted, it's an element, a part of a Tom Liberatore injury has helped open that, but even before that injury in the game, he had the role that meant his scoring was back being strong again. Granted, again, small sample size in a third of a footy game, but yeah, it's where you've got to be really careful who you get your advice from, whether it be a noisy, small minority or it's the group think and the popular opinion or things like that. It's making sure you're making those right decisions for your side, not just going with somebody said, so I'm going to.
I mean, he was the first buy anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So you're going to cop straight in a guy who's getting a buy. You're not even working around with the extra score.
Yeah. Oh, the thing with McRae was he was always, if you chose to go against him at the start of the year, there's a couple of pain weeks, then it kind of tempered out. McRae was always target number one off the buy round, I would have thought, for non-owners going, his ownership is so high that if he does do what he can do, and I'm non-owner, I'm going to get left behind. But at his price point, you don't need him to go 120. You just need him to average 100, because that's what you're paying for at that point in time. And already we've seen in 2 weeks, he's delivered in spades for owners.
I think a lot of people planned to get him off that first buy
and got scared.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, got scared because they're like, oh, the form's not there or the scores aren't there. But sometimes, risk and calculated risk, rightly or not, is a really important part of fantasy footy, that's for sure. Any other trade targets you got for us, Tim, before I want to talk about cash cows, because you've brought up an interesting point there, Fox.
Yeah. No, that was the major ones, I think.
All right. Well, let's talk about the cash cows, because you've talked about Fox about a must-have or as close to a must-have as McRae, and I understand what you're talking about, but depending on the fantasy footy format you play, we're in a really interesting week this week. We've been screaming out for the past couple of weeks to help us finish our side for just one or two more cash cows over the multi-buy round that's going to give us the cash generation to be able to make the downgrade that we need to be able to bring those final premiums in. And there's probably 3 or 4 guys across the formats that are on the bubble for us this week in Dream Team and SuperCoach that offer value for us. There's Griffin Logue, a defender. Jackson Haitley, the GWS midfielder. He's confirmed in this week. Paddy Nash, yet to be named at time of recording, and it sounds like the Tiger Army are starting to get some of those, premiership players back over the next 1, 2, 3 weeks. And then the fourth one is Hind from the Saints. Tim, is there a priority order that's general, no matter the format you play? If you're a non-owner of these guys, these are the ones you have to target? Or is it format to format a different set of priorities of who should be your cash cow priority?
Well, the number one, surprisingly, seems to be Griffin Logue, given his scoring and his break-even.
Yeah, so in SuperCoach, he's priced at 164, averaging 98 and a break-even of negative 99. In AFL Fantasy, he's priced over 300,000 but still has a negative break-even of negative 10, while in Dream Team, just priced a touch over 200,000, 213k, average of 87, same as AFL Fantasy, but a break-even of negative 77.
Yep. And there's not too many players who get negative break-evens in fantasy, so I would guess he'd be just
After this would be his third game too, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd be just about guessing he'd be the lowest break-even in the league this week.
Naish is the only one that's a little bit higher, negative 13, and he's about 50,000 cheaper.
There you go. So even at 300,000, he's a decent trade-in in fantasy, because in fantasy you only need to hang on to him for a couple of games if you have to.
Another 3 weeks and he's done his job kind of thing, yep.
In SuperCoach and Dream Team, the one thing he does have seemingly over the others as well is job security.
What is that? Because we could say he's got job security. What's created that opportunity for him?
So basically Alex Pearce getting injured, as unfortunately he often does, seems to have just opened up the role and plugged Griffin Logue straight back in, which Freo seemed to want to play him but just didn't necessarily have the spot for him, or hasn't been fully fit or whatever it is.
Yeah, sure.
He's there now. That spot's his. He seems to have the best job security
of the ones. So both in terms of a scoring potential, job security, and break even across the formats, Logue's your number one.
Yeah. So on scoring though, he hasn't necessarily done this before.
Nope.
So is it sustainable? Is his role,
or is it just he's matured as a footballer too? You know, he's been in the system now for a couple of years.
And if the scoring is not sustainable, does it really matter if he's got job security? Because if you trade this guy in like say Supercoach Dream Team, are you likely to trade him out again?
Is he Logan? Is he Logan Austin?
Yeah,
is that from last year where he has 2 or 3 ripper games out of nowhere? It's like, holy hell, this guy's flying, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with the 30s and 40s. Or does it even matter if he is?
Yeah, like is he likely to be people's D7? You'd guess.
Yeah. In Supercoach, if he was my D7, I'd be stoked with that. I think, given he's got job security and we've seen him score pretty nicely, granted it's 2 games of data, I'd be very happy to roll into my end-of-season side with a Griffin Logue there.
So why hasn't he got games? Is it injury?
Injury and lack of opportunity. Like Hamling, Pearce, years before it was Michael Johnson,
is he gonna
Luke Ryan.
Up? Is he going to stand up?
Well, he's doing better than Harley Bennell.
You could say everyone's doing better than Harley Bennell.
That's true, but,
nothing against Harley. He's had a tough trot.
Yeah, he has, and so's Griff, but you can only go off there's no risk at that price because he's just there. Worst case scenario becomes your throwaway D8, and he makes you money to get you the upgrade you need off Dersma, Lockhart, Darcy Moore, Brodie Smith injury. That's worst case scenario you're talking. So you're saying, Tim, Logue's the priority if you don't have him really in all formats, but definitely Dream Team and Supercoach, he's your number one.
For me, it would be.
For you, it would be. Is there a clear-cut number 2 across the formats, or is that when it starts to become a little more open to opinion depending on the format you're playing?
Well, clearly the scoring is Haitley.
Yeah.
So the question for Haitley is job security.
Yes.
And Nick Hine seems a little bit cheaper. First game didn't set the house on fire. Was certainly a lot better last week.
Kicked 3 goals, so that helped.
So he's scoring. On scoring, you just go from what you've seen. Haitley's scoring seems better than Nick Hine if you're talking midfielders, but is Hine's job security necessarily better than Haitley's?
Well, he's came into the side when Jack Steele's got injured, and he's still 2 to 3 weeks away. And Jack Stevens back at the club training, and the club said that he was needing to almost do another mini pre-season. So he's probably 3 to 5 weeks away because you'd expect they give him a run through the VFL. So potentially he's got a couple of weeks of job security there because at least he's kicking goals.
That's true. Yeah,
3 goals was a lot.
Well, in that game it was.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get that, nor will he then score that every week. Guys that, their score is generated highly through, forward conversion. You're not going to get that from a guy through there. So I'm hearing you, and I'm keen to get your take on it too, Fox. And I can run you through the break-evens. They're at coachespanel.tv if you want to go to check them out. If you don't have an assistant coach or a fantasy assistant or whatever your formats call it, you can go and check out the top 20, 25 break-evens over at coachespanel.tv. But on form, I'm hearing you say Logue's the one. On potential, it's Haitley, but there's a big question mark over job security. And then Hind is probably next, I'm hearing you say. But there's a question mark, but it's probably not as strong a question mark over Haitley. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, I'd say so. And then there's a couple of sort of cheaper, like not so cheaper guys, but the next step down. I think Rose has played a couple of
From the
games.
Swans, yep.
If you need a forward, I think he's the only forward on the bubble.
Yep.
You go Tom Lynch. So. Wouldn't you?
Spend the extra 100K
No,
and get Tom Lynch.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Or I think the other one
that was a no from Tim by the sounds of it.
And the other one was Garner for Port.
Oh, yeah.
But again, would you pick him ahead of Griffin Logue if you need a defender?
Well, and then you've got someone like a Paddy Nation. You're the Tiger in the room, so we'll talk about that. He's coming onto the bubble, with a break-even of -72 this week at a price of 123 in SuperCoach in AFL Fantasy. He's got the best break-even this week with -13, just under 230,000, averaging in the mid to low 70s, and similar in Dream Team, 157,900. What's his role securing on the side like? Because he's looked good for the couple of games he's had.
Do you want an answer in one word?
Yep.
No.
Will he play? Here we go.
Yeah.
He'll play this week?
If he does, it'd probably be his last game.
Okay.
But I don't think he will.
And that's just because guys like Lambert, Koch, and
Richmond are going to bring 4 to 6 guys in
this week,
the week after.
The cavalry's coming.
I think he'd be one of the first. Like, he's done his job. He's had a taste of it.
Yeah.
They've given him a taste, but I wouldn't want him on the bench for the rest of the year.
So
I
if
wouldn't want to bring him in now for, say, one game, because you'd only be bringing him in if he plays, wouldn't you?
Is he worth it, Tim, in say an AFL Fantasy, where he's priced at that 245K, got the best break even, if he's named? Obviously, if he's not named, null and void question. Is he worth it for a 1 week trader in AFL Fantasy just because he's potentially got the best cash generation for you? Or because of what you're hearing from Fox, you're going, look, you might be making 50K 1 week, but you're just going to get another trade out of it next week. What's your kind of take? Is he worth it for a week?
Not in fantasy, no, because you just go Griffin Logue.
Right.
I know he's a little bit more expensive, but he's likely to make just as much money in the next 1 week, and he's much more likely to stay in the team. Yeah,
so you're saying you're better to go get Logan if you don't. Go and get Haitley if you don't. Go and get a guy, even a Garner, at that cheaper price point. That seems to be what I'm hearing you say more so than anything
That's the way I'd roll it in fantasy.
Yeah, Garner's break-even's 9, by the way, in AFL Fantasy, and is around about 40,000 cheaper.
He should be a good kid.
Oh, he'd be a very good kid.
Very spindly.
He's got some talent about him. The Tigers have. Yeah. Now, he's a father-son, but yet again, they've nailed the pick with him, and they've got another couple of gun kids. They're not going away anytime soon.
And that's probably all he wanted this year was a taste.
Yeah. No, I think so too. Well,
he's definitely not best 22.
No, I think if you've got an ideal Tigers 22, Naish is not in there. Yeah. But he's showing some great signs.
Exactly.
Some really great signs.
We'll see a lot more from him next year.
Well, you've talked about keeper leagues. Maybe before.
Before that, there's one other guy who's on the bubble who people may not think of as a guy who's on the bubble, and that's Hamish Hartlett. And the reason I mention him is mostly SuperCoach. Sure. So in SuperCoach, he's priced at $3.49, and he's currently averaging in the 80s. So again, you probably don't have the trades to trade him in, make a little bit of money and trade him out. So he'd be more
trading him in as
like a cheap D6
to D7 on your run through rather than a. Yeah. Would you feel in your SuperCoach side? Would you feel content with him as your last defender on field?
I don't mind him as SuperCoach scoring, but I'd be very nervous running him through 9 rounds as my D6.
Okay.
In terms of injury history and scoring.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's fair enough too.
No, you would.
But it's mostly if you're running low on trades, you don't have the money. You got to look at some options like that, like we spoke earlier.
Yeah.
He's actually on my sheet, Tim. But
that's a reason to rub him out.
Ryan Burton above him in SuperCoach.
I love the Ryan Burton
because
pick.
he's only Ryan Burton's 17K higher.
I'm a big fan of the Ryan Burton selection.
And how's the uniqueness? Ryan Burton, like Rids talked him up, didn't he, 2 weeks ago?
Just a couple of weeks ago.
He had a vision.
He didn't he didn't have a Baywatch vision, but for those that picked him up after the buy, as Rids spoke about, SuperCoach owners, you would have been returned scores of a 105 and a 96.
Nice.
Which is more than handy. And then if you traded him in Dream Team and AFL Fantasy, again, at a cheaper price point, depending on the game you play, he's returned a couple of nice scores for you in just the past 2 weeks as well. And that's because of injury and also some players moving out of the side in Dream Team and AFL Fantasy. He's returned scores of 93 and 110.
And can you give me a percentage owned, please?
An absolute pittance of ownership. It is a handful of ownership across the formats.
So so someone owns him in Bendigo.
Yeah, in Bendigo, a couple of people in East Fremantle, and one in Wodonga.
1.4%.
Yeah, depending on the format. It's
And Tim,
barely
your
anyone's
Hartlett 0.5.
in Supercoach. That's
1,127 people.
okay. Well, I'll just update my prayer list for those people.
Palmer.
That's fine. We'll make that happen. Well, you're talking about Naish as a great young kid.
Yeah.
And it gets me thinking of maybe Tim. Let's talk a little bit about keeper leagues. We like to talk about salary cap formats, all of them. We love to talk drafts, both keeper and seasonal league. It is kind of getting to that final month for a lot of sides that, depending on how they play, they'll use the ultimate footy rule and kind of run the trade deadline to the final Sunday at the end of July. So we're into that month now where if you're in finals contention, you're looking at, okay, how can I bolster the depth of my bench and the quality of my side for a real all-out finals assault? Also, coaches are starting to look at going, not only am I no chance at finals, but I wouldn't mind sweetening my potential draft haul, my future side. So who are some players, and again, every coach is in that different position, who are some players we should be looking to trade out if you're out of contention right now? So finals are no chance, but you're maximising the trade currency in an ultimate footy keeper league. Who are some guys you'd be saying, if you own them, you're not in contention, tap out on this player to get your best price?
Yeah, so there'd be two things. One is if it's a team who's just really needs to rebuild.
Sure.
Or the second one is if you're a team who reckons you've just been cooled by injury, you might have
Taberner, Tom Mitchell, Jack Bowes.
So it's a little
Devon
different.
Smith.
One of them might want to keep a decent team for next
Doherty,
year,
yeah.
and the others might just want to go full kids. But either way, there's a guy you might want to trade out if you had him. Would be Ricky Henderson.
Oh,
probably
nice call.
get you the biggest reward.
Chances are you just picked him off the draft list this year.
Yeah.
So
Now, I mean, I don't know if anyone with Henderson would necessarily be missing finals on the way he's going.
yeah, sure.
But no, Ricky Henderson be definitely one. He's never done it before, and he's getting on in years. So
Yep.
make the value now.
Tom Mitchell's back next year. Maybe Cornelio, depending on which draft board you read.
Yes, Matt Suckling.
Yeah.
Another one in defence.
Yep.
He's doing pretty well.
Move him out.
You're unlikely to keep him if you're a team who's not in finals this year already.
Yep.
Guys like that. Steph Martin maybe.
Yeah.
Just basically guys who are premiums this year, but you would borderline drop next year.
Or have not done it this well before and at the latter limelight of their career.
Correct. Maybe a guy like Cruiser, now that he's back, you're like, yes, good, bang, trade him.
Cade Simpson. Has he got another year left in him?
Oh, I don't know about that. But all right.
These are the sorts of guys.
And who are the guys that we should be targeting, Fox? Is there some kids or some undervalued guys that have had some underwhelming years? Is it the time to start targeting guys like a Devon Smith? If you're not, let me give you some names.
I'll have to go through my keeper leagues.
That's fine.
They're all in there.
Yeah, you're looking at the bad luck you've got. Is it the year where you start, if you're out of contention, do you start trying to pick off the Jesse Hogans, the Devon Smiths, the Sam Dohertys, the Tom Mitchells? Is that the target that you start going for guys that are going to help you in future?
If you're rebuilding, you go for those young ones. I'd be looking at Tim English seriously. He'd be one of the top of the list that I'd be trying to get, because you might just be able to get him.
Yeah, sure.
You probably won't next year.
Yeah, everything's developing nicely.
He's taken some beautiful marks down back.
Yeah, he has.
Solid hands and
moves the ground nicely. Yeah,
midfielder in a Bruckman's body.
Yes.
So he'd be probably number one.
So he's your number one in a keeper league if you had the opportunity?
to look. Because Ruckman, it's very hard to find Ruckman.
Yes, it is.
There's so much gap between the first two to three. Witz is up there, isn't he? So
Rowan Marshall's closing the gap too.
It drops away very quickly, isn't it? So you're in a 12, depending on how many coaches are in it. Yep.
All right.
If you're in 12, definitely.
Okay.
He'd be number one.
Are there any players for you, Tim, you'd be keeping an eye on, that if you're out of contention, are some guys that are not quite delivered what they'd expected this year through injury form, that you go, no, I reckon there's something here. I could swindle a bargain here by going after him and offloading the Henderson types.
Yeah, look, the trick is to get the guys the year before they break out.
Yes.
And there's always a few of them. There's guys who have dropped players like Cornelio, Hopper, whoever, guys like that in previous years who, like a year before, they just really looked good. So a guy this year who might even still be available in a couple of keeper leagues, Braden Sire.
Yep.
Some people have carried him all year.
Yeah.
I think he's had one good game, one lower game on the weekend, but definitely a guy who either with Collingwood or
elsewhere,
yep, could be someone to watch for future years, and probably doesn't have a massive price on him.
Yep.
But has really high potential.
Yeah.
Can I add
of course you can.
The young copper, Constable.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Go and get him.
Yeah, I reckon he'll be a big.
All right. I agree. I think we've seen plenty of signs.
He plays a little bit of defence too, so a little bit of sweeping factor there.
Okay. And what about if you're in contention then? You put it in the reverse. How all in do you go with the guys that are having these outlier years or that are in their last, twilight moments of their career? Is it, I'm in contention, do you go all in at the cost? Like, what do? Do you start sacrificing your long-term future? Are you getting rid of the kids that have not quite come on but will for the sake of a shot at a flag? Or do you kind of do everything you can without destroying the long-term future of their side, Fox? What are you kind of doing?
Depends on what your team looks like.
Yeah, of course it does.
So if you're in contention, say you're top two and you've got Tom Mitchell on the bench, would you look to trade him?
It's a great question.
Well, aggressive. I think
you would.
I think if you're going to win a flag, you have to be aggressive.
Okay, so if someone came to you with a Matt Crouch and a draft pick for a Tom Mitchell, or a Matt Crouch, I've said Matt Crouch. I said the wrong person.
They wouldn't need the draft pick.
I picked the wrong
player. It was
player.
like a Matt Crouch and Ricky Henderson for Tom Mitchell. Would you?
Will you take that?
Oh, definitely.
In a keeper league, you go for that. Yeah,
you'd want something significant.
Yeah, sure. Because
you'd want a premium midfielder and something else.
Yeah. But you're talking
about
be
Constable, like Crouch and Constable.
That would do it in your eyes.
Yeah. Okay, I wouldn't sign that quick.
You deliberately wait a few half milliseconds to kind of bank that in. So you're talking about injured guys that are coming out. Well, what about some kids that are, the potential's there, whether it be a Sire, I'm thinking like a Luke Davies-Uniacke who's showing the signs he's going to be there. Are you getting rid of these kids as well to kind of get there, or is it more you go all in on the guys that look, I'll get the Mitchell, it'll hurt me, but I'm going for it, or do you get rid of the kids that could be there but aren't just yet there?
It's always handy to have a couple.
Okay.
Like probably one or two.
Sure.
Like you have one of the best young mids and one of the best mid category. Just
stash them away.
I think you have to keep one or two, but don't have stacks of them.
Okay. All right.
I think it's worth testing the water too. It depends who you've got and what value you get for them. Like if you've got a Jack Higgins, Davies-Uniacke, a couple of guys like that, if you think they're going to be really good, but you'd find someone else who's willing to pay for that now, and you're in contention, I'd do it.
Yeah. Premierships in any kind of sense just don't stumble around. There's got to be an element of, in a keeper league, a great list build, a little bit of luck on the way.
But you can get a few cheap old guys through late draft picks. Like you offer up, you pick
as you get towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, you pick it. You offer up, you pick 7, 8.
Round, not overall. Yeah.
For the coming draft,
Yeah.
And get in a few a few of the older guys that still got some punch in them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you just delist them.
Yeah, so you're talking about getting rid of just the back end of your draft haul. That's going to improve somebody else's exit out of the next year draft.
You never know what you can get. You might be able to get a Selwood. He'd be cheap enough at the moment, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, people would have picked up Rowan Marshall stupidly late this year in the draft, if not off the waiver wire. Yeah. And you're getting 100 forward, there and thereabouts. So every year we get these guys that you pick up crazy late in a draft and deliver.
That's a lucky dip, isn't it?
Oh, of course it's a lucky dip, but you get it every year. You get 1, 2, 3 players that come out of nowhere.
Jimmy's got a good story of how he got beaten by 2 of the guys. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, we'll let Jimmy tell
that.
that
Was in a Shiva draft.
Yeah, well, you need like a strings ensemble playing something very somber in the background for that story. Maybe we'll try to
bring
get
him in and we'll cuddle him on each side.
Maybe we're not doing that, but maybe we could. You
might need a little cuddle. Yeah.
I'm not doing that, especially after your Westhoff comment before. Maybe that's something we'll do over this week. Is we'll put our Facebook post and a Twitter post. Is I want to hear your draft sob stories where either you made a trade and it went absolutely pear-shaped on you, it looked right on paper and then it just absolutely fell apart, or the other is you felt like you just got absolutely robbed of a matchup because guys came out of nowhere and delivered monster scores, #Lyset this week, that you'd never ever seen #Tom McDonald this week. That's the kind of thing. So go and check out our Facebook and Twitter handles and check that out. That should be landing there very time soon.
I once got rolled by Dane Rampy coming off the emergency bench and scoring 120.
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
Stories like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And we'll try to collate the best and we'll bring them on the podcast next week and we can all just share each other's pain. Let's head over to the Patreon army and check in with them. They have a number of questions we want to get to and just a handful that we want to throw out. If you want to support the Coaches Panel, you could do that in a number of ways, certainly by downloading and listening to the podcast, liking, sharing and subscribing, everything you can find off socials. But certainly you can go the extra step and join the Patreon army, get some exclusive content while you're there. You can do that at patreon.com/Coaches Panel. One of the great rewards you get is you get to ask questions on the podcast. And Paul Erickson, great supporter of the panel, wants to know, I'll open it up to you, Tim. It's an AFL fantasy question. He says, should we be targeting Lachie Whitfield immediately when he returns? Look, he's certainly more interested in AFL fantasy. That's his format of choice, but in everywhere. It sounds like he won't play this week. He's not being named. But he could still be a couple of weeks away still, which means you're probably 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks left in the season to go. I'll phrase it better. Should we be holding a spot on our side for the return of Lachie Whitfield? Or is it now just he's going to miss too much footy to make it worth trading him in?
Look, he's got a pretty high break-even in fantasy. His break-even's up around 140.
Yep, he's done that before.
I know he has. Look, I wouldn't trade him first game.
You'd want to see something after the collarbone?
Yeah, but I mean, it might depend a little bit. It depends who his game back is against. If he's at home to Gold Coast,
sure.
I don't mind it. He's clearly one of the top couple of scoring defenders for the year.
Oh, outside of Laird,
Lloyd,
Hearn and Lloyd, there's not many others that can match him for potential ceiling.
So how do you bring him in?
You trade him, Fox.
At that price.
But that's the thing is, so he's not back this week. Next week is the earliest he'll return, which is Brisbane. So potentially it could be at the MCG against Richmond. It would be the first trade-in opportunity. And that's just 7 or 8 games for the rest of the year. Look, GWS still have a pretty nice fixture after the Richmond and Collingwood game in round 18. It does start to quite open up for them. They take on Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, Sydney, Hawthorn, the Western Bulldogs, and then they finish their season up against Gold Coast at Metricon Stadium. So Richmond will be close to a full-strength side, you'd think, in 3 weeks' time.
Although even full strength, they seem to give up a few points.
They do, yeah, especially to midfielders. They've really been giving up a lot of points, and it is going to take a little bit of time for that synergy to kind of get back in there from a Richmond perspective to be back to the full force that we know they are and will be.
They won't finish 9th.
They definitely won't. They're finishing finals pretty safely, in my opinion. But yeah, you're right. So you're talking a Lachie Whitfield of, 7 weeks is what you're going to get out of him.
So who goes, Brody? Who goes out? Brody Smith?
Well, I think that's the question is how long do you keep the spot open for him? And is it the player you could bring in, whether it be a Crisp, a Stewart, a Hearn, a Sicily's going to bottom out in about 2 weeks' time in price? Can you do more by choosing that? I think it's an interesting conversation, but I don't think there's anyone this year that's shown they have the consistent ceiling like Whitfield. And if I could get him into my team, I 100% would find a way to bring him in.
He is good.
Jeez, he's good. Yeah, he's always been a good player, but he's gone to another gear last year and again up this year. He's certainly done that for us through there. Another AFL fantasy question for us, and I think there's a little bit of options here, and we'll throw it Here we go, Fox. We'll throw the 3 questions to you, nice and quick.
3?
3. They're all from the same guy. We'll throw them to you. Trading up to Logue and sacrifice the money production on field.
Which one? Logan Griffiths?
Griffin Logue, not Logue in Griffiths.
That's the Fremantle guy.
Yeah, it is the Fremantle guy.
Yeah, he's good.
For him, do what it takes, even if you're spending the money to get him to make the money.
Yeah, I'd bring him in. Bring him in.
All right, fair enough.
Definitely, that would be one of my main targets.
Main targets across the formats. Is it worth trading O'Brien to Grundy? Or wait a couple more weeks?
Points on field.
Grundy would say that. All right, fair enough.
I'd much prefer Grundy.
Or even just generally, a few people will have that. If they've got O'Brien in any format, do you trade him to Gawn or Grundy, whichever one you don't have?
Yeah.
Like, is it worth it on the run home?
Well, I think this week you're probably okay to go against it, given the Crows come up against Geelong, and we saw what Lysette does on his own. But I think after that point, then he comes up against Port Adelaide, not too far after that, with the showdown, and every week you think
his draw's not too bad, but will he stay the Crows' number 1 ruck the whole season?
It takes one bad game and Sauce will come in, but I think he's doing. I'm a Crows supporter. I can't see Sauce getting back in without O'Brien getting injured.
I'd say he's done his job. He's made you 300,000.
The time to trade him was last week.
Yeah.
He already done the job.
Yeah, and him getting a massive score, having a lower break even, doesn't help you because Gawn and Grundy have done the same thing.
Correct. Yeah, 100% right. Yeah, the time to trade him was last week. If you've still got him, it's different if you've got a Jared Witts, who he's got a phenomenal fixture, and that trade, you might be 200 points down between Witts and Grundy between now and the end of the year, but can you make up that points with trading in a player in another position? Because Witts, I think pretty much after this week, has the perfect run for rucks. I think he's got Gawn once, and outside of that, he's got every possible ruck matchup you could possibly ask for that would be favourable for him. So it's a bit different through that. Last AFL fantasy question that we'll give to you, Fox, then the others we'll throw over to Tim. A lot of them are AFL fantasy questions, although there is a Tom McDonald Supercoach question. So we'll save that one for you.
I want that one.
No, that's definitely one coming to you. It's simple. Is it worth trading Warple out for a Heaney to a Dusty in AFL fantasy? Over the past month, I don't think Dusty's failed to miss tunning up in AFL fantasy.
Dusty has hit a streak.
He's on a really nice 5-week hit.
Warple's a younger guy.
I think he had his best game last week for the year.
Fade a little. If it's a preference, who would you rather? Dusty.
All right, I agree with that too.
Probably not to Heaney though. They're average fairly similar, aren't they?
Yeah, if I was trading into any forward of the trading Warple to a Heaney or a Dusty, I'd be going Dusty.
Yeah, we're talking Dusty as a forward.
Yes, and that's the format he's picked
Dusty,
that up.
Yep.
An AFL fantasy question for you, Tim. Louis Farrar, great supporter of the panel. He's got his own little podcast too. He does some great stuff with that. Hearn or Salem? Who do you like more in AFL fantasy, Hearn or Salem?
This has been a dilemma a few people have had the last couple of weeks.
And last week didn't go great for the Hearn owners.
Did not, no. Well, look, if you're going on immediate form, Salem over Hearn. Look,
you can't blame Hearn for coming back a little bit slow after an injury, can you?
No, you can. You can definitely blame him. You're not blaming anybody else. It's not Dom Sheed's fault. Look, Shannon Hearn at the moment in AFL fantasy is going to set you back $656K, is what you're pricing there for him, whereas a Tyson or Salem is, 25-30K less.
Yeah, look, they've both done it for the better part of 2 years now.
Yeah.
I think so. I think really there's flipping a coin. Odds are one of them outscores the other convincingly, the way fantasy works.
Yeah, I like Hearn more personally, but if someone said I'm choosing Salem, I wouldn't argue against him.
But if it's a flip of the coin, don't you go the cheaper?
Well, I go with the guy that I think's got the better ceiling.
Hearn has had a couple of big scores.
But again, everybody has a different...
Sometimes I actually go for the haircut.
Yeah, well, then if that's the case, you're never picking Dusty, then are you? He loses every time.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different tiebreaker, don't they? For some, it's whatever that factor is. For me, while cheaper is definitely a big tiebreaker, for me it's who do I think's got the biggest ceiling.
So what was the question again?
Well, it's Hearn or Salem. Felt like I could have jinxed you then. It's all right. That's fair enough.
And what was the pro? What was that? It was who
Salem's
won?
cheaper by 25.
Yeah, but,
He's saying Salem.
What did you say?
I like Hearn's potential to be score
So I've got the vote. I've got the
Go
casting
split the
vote.
deal then. Go on then.
I prefer Hearn in SuperCoach and Salem in AF.
All right, there you go. There's a question for you, mate. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. That's for sure.
Flip a coin.
Yeah, flip a coin. All right, fair enough. So, SuperCoach question, and the last one, we'll throw it over to you. It is very simple. From Craig, he wants to know, Craig Keel, Tom McDonald, SuperCoach,
He's
question mark.
Cats.
He's
wax
a
cat.
very good fantasy footy coach, is our mate Craig.
Yes.
Just wants to know, Tom McDonald, SuperCoach, question mark. Yay,
Who
nay.
are we going up against?
Doesn't say, just it's a general question. Is it worth it? Before this week, he only had 4 scores over 80.
We've talked about him earlier.
We have 4 scores over 80, except this one 30 odd.
Yeah, last year he killed it. If he can find that rare vein of form,
yeah, and if pigs can fly,
you'd be right onto it.
Yeah.
This might be the match-winning pick for him this year.
I think it's the Dirty Harry answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you feel lucky?
Like, I prefer Tom Lynch.
Why did I go?
To be honest, it's cheaper. You got about another.
Look, from
$80K.
I actually quite like Melbourne's run.
I don't mind it on what I saw last week.
Look, he's actually got some pretty decent matchups again. I know I feel like I'm the upcoming fixture king, but Brisbane, Carlton and the Bulldogs are the next 3 weeks for Melbourne.
All right, Craig, go for it.
Then it gets nasty with the Eagles, but then goes to the Saints. Depending on the Richmond
Once he picks
lineup.
up that form, he might carry it on.
All you need is him to do it for the next 4 weeks, and it's done its job for you. All right, there you go. I hope that helps you out. Hey, Fox, nice to have you on the episode again, mate. 2 out of 3 weeks,
I'm
not
on
too
the
bad.
bubble.
You're on the bubble?
I'm now on the bubble.
Yeah, well, Jackson Haley's been on the bubble for a better part of 2 months.
I might not be coming back for 5 weeks or 6 weeks.
Well, with the Westhoff call, I thought about it, that's for sure. Tim, mate, nice to have you in this episode.
Yep, cheers.
As always, if you love the Coaches Panel and what you want to keep consuming via podcasting, make sure you go back and check it out via Spotify and iTunes. Make sure you've hit the follow button or the subscribe button. Leave a 5-star rating and review if you're enjoying it. As we enter into the final couple of months of fantasy footy for the year, we hope it certainly goes your way. I hope your captain crushes it. The Coel Kings have got some great content for you. Oh, and yes, Fox, speaking of Coel,
We've got a new leader.
we do have a new leader in the Nobel Coel. Go and check it out on Facebook.
Tomorrow. It'll be on tomorrow.
Thursday morning is when you can go and check that out. We've got a new leader in the Nobel Coel, which is the Coaches Panel Coach of the Year Award. Still not too late to join, but gosh, you'll need some luck to win it.
3rd place is now 1st place after last week's results.
There you go. You can check that out on Facebook. Make sure you keep in touch with us and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Good luck this week. We will be back next week to chat all things fantasy footy with you.